All right, so what we got today is on the Jeep. This is a 2000 Jeep TJ. The right rear axle seal is leaking, so we're gonna have to address that. It's automatically gonna get a bearing. I don't know why it's leaking. Sometimes these things leak because the bearing's gone bad. In that case, the axle could be bad too. We won't know until we get it apart, but as you can see, it's pretty nasty. It'd been leaking for a while. I knew I was gonna have to change it, and I was starting to get motivated to do it, but I went out wheeling today and I finished it off. So that's what we're gonna be doing. This bearing's bad, which is what I suspected. This really explains why the seal would go bad. Why is the bearing bad? I don't know. It's a new bearing, new axle, new seal. I mean, it's a couple years old. Jeep don't, I bet it ain't had 10,000 miles put on it in 2 years. So anyway, just a thing I noticed.
Wouldn't get back in the
Yuck. That's metal. Alright, so we've drained our fluid. I'm going to take this cover off and then see how nasty it looks inside. There was a lot of metal shavings on that drain plug. A lot. It's awful. So I'm sure there's a shit ton in here. So let's get to it. Look at that metal. What a shame. So you'll spin your axle around until the lock screw is evident. You remove the screw. So it's just a pin to keep this pin from falling out. And then push this pin out. So you'll take this pin out, and then you'll be able to remove the C-clip that's on the end of your axle, and then you'll be able to pull the axle out. Alright, so after you get your pin out, you'll see the C-clip. You'll have to move your axle in. Now, in my case, I had to beat it with a big hammer because there's probably a groove where the bearing's worn. I couldn't get it to move in far enough to get the clip out, but now we're there. So we're gonna see if we can get the clip out. This stupid magnet. There's our clip. There's your little clip. Now the axle will come out. Maybe. Probably be another ordeal, but we'll get it. There. Look at that. Golly. Look at that groove. All right, so from here, at this point, we've removed our pin, we got our C-clip out, we removed the axle. We've noticed that we have, I don't know, dump truck supply metal shavings in our rear end. We've tried to clean out. We're never going to get all that shit out. So at this point, I don't know whether I'm going to pull the spool out and put all new bearings. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but we'll figure that out later. What we're going to do right now is we're going to pull this bearing out and the seal. And what you're going to need is a bearing remover. This is what it looks like. This one's good for inch to inch and 7/8. So when you'll tilt this like this, and then you put it in, and then it'll catch around the race of the bearing, like so. See, we're caught. And then you'll run this nut down to hold it tight so it can't flex or anything and pivot and come undone. And you can get a wrench if you want. I don't find it to be that necessary. Then your little Hootis tool goes on the end of a slide hammer. This end's threaded, and it threads right into here. So we're gonna and there it is. That's it. The seal and the bearing came out. Now I'm gonna find out what kind of shitty bearing this is. Maybe, if I can. Because I want to understand why this shit went south. There ain't 10,000 miles on this bearing. Or that axle. It's unacceptable. I gotta be honest. Alright, well, here's our bearing. I don't know if you can read it or not, but it says National. So, I mean, it's a good bearing. It wasn't some crap bearing that was used. Alright, so we got our new axle in. I ordered a Motive Gear axle. They're the ones that say 10 on them. It's like this, 10 factory. I mean, there's a lot of axle options out there. You can start off with junk, that's Dorman, and you can go up to Yukon, which that's what I wanted, but the wait time was too much. So I ordered this one. It came with a bearing and a seal. I couldn't tell from the description what bearing it was going to come with, so I figured I'd just wait and see. It actually comes with a Koyo bearing, which those are really good bearings. I'm happy to see that. And it come with new studs. So I don't have a problem knocking the other ones out and reusing them, but it came with new ones, so I'm gonna check, make sure that they do fit my lug nuts. You know, you never know. So it sucked to put them all in and have to take them all back out. This is a 1/11/16 socket, and it fits perfectly in the hole. So it'll clear the hole, and it mates up to the bearing really well. So I'm going to use it to drive the bearing in. That way we won't damage it. Just nice, easy little taps. A couple more taps for good measure. Oh yeah, that's it. We're there. All right, so bearing's in. All right, so when it comes to the seals like this, I always coat the outside of it with some kind of silicone. I generally use this Ford Motorcraft silicone. right, so there's a little stack. They're about the size of a quarter. You can see they're flat, thin. These are neodymium magnets, and I'm just going to start putting. They're very strong. I mean, like, you can't peel it off. You got to slide it. The torque on these is between 30 and 40 foot-pounds. So I start off around 33. If it doesn't leak, I leave it. All right, so for my particular application, I'm putting the Yukon gear additive in. Now, after thinking about everything, I'm not gonna let it run until we get to the next oil change. I might run it 500 miles, and then I'm gonna drain this and do it again. So I'm just gonna put junk, what I consider junk gear oil in here. Bitch. All right, job's done, wheels on, torqued, took it for a test drive. I mean, you know, unless you put something together wrong, there was some other big nasty thing that you just overlooked, your test drive's gonna be fine. It's gonna be a long-term test to see how those metal shavings impact everything else. I think it'll be fine. You know, those little metal shavings will be softer. They'll just kind of grind up, fall to the bottom, get stuck on the magnets. We'll get them out. I mean, look, at this point, they've been grinding away. That thing's been trucking around in metal shavings for a while before we took it apart. So I ain't worried about it. I don't care. We got to take it back apart, pull the carrier out, and change all the bearings. It's really not a big deal. I know a lot of people think, oh my God, I'm gonna have to take that to the shop. Honestly, you don't. You just don't have to. It's not that big a deal. If you're putting new bearing, you know, like a new ring and pinion in, changing your gear, that gear mesh and the backlash, I mean, these are critical things. They need to be measured and checked and scoped out and done with precision. If you want to have a shop do that, I get it. That's probably not a good idea. It's probably a good idea, but for stuff like this, you can do it. It's not a big deal. It's like doing brakes. No big deal. Anyway, a couple things. If you do take the carrier out, those bolts that hold that carrier on, those are 57 foot-pounds on a Jeep TJ Dana 35. The diff cover I mentioned, but those are 30 to 40 foot-pounds. The little keeper that, you know, the little pin that holds your big pin in place in the center of the spool to keep the axle from moving, kind of holds everything in place. I think that is like 12 foot-pounds. I just snugged it down with a wrench. So don't take my word for it. I didn't look it up because I don't care. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching.